It's easy to be fascinated by Paul Allen's story because, really, none of us can begin to remotely understand what his life must be like.
Well, he's had a lot of challenges, a lot of adversity in his life. He's interested in so many different things. The sciences, music, art, philanthropy. A Renaissance man, a modern-day Renaissance man.
At Seattle's Town Hall, hundreds of people came to hear the billionaire talk about his life. Sitting down with Todd Bishop from GeekWire.com.
If you saw a penny on the ground, would you stop and pick it up?
What year? I have to say, I might leave it for the next person.
Always on the list of the wealthiest Americans, Allen, who lives on the shores of Lake Washington, has never shared much about himself in public.
Tell us about your yachts.
They're too big and there are too many of them.
One of his super yachts has 2 helicopter pads and a submarine.
It turns out if you go 1,000 feet down in the ocean, it's really dark. And the animals are really strange, but if you put on some Pink Floyd, it's fantastic.
In his new book, Idea Man, Allen offers a candid look at his unusual life. Growing up in Seattle, meeting his younger classmate Bill Gates in the computer room at Lakeside School. Allen writes about how he came up with the name Microsoft and what can only be described as a complicated relationship with Gates.
There's certain things that happened that were key moments in my life, the reasons that I left Microsoft, and I felt like I wouldn't be doing justice to my own story if I didn't tell them the way they happened.
Allen recalled lengthy shouting matches with Gates. We'd go for hours at a stretch, he writes. I hated that feeling. At first, Allen assumed his partnership with Gates was a 50-50 deal, but he says Gates pushed for a larger share, up to 64%. I'd been taught that a deal was a deal and your word was your bond, Allen writes. Bill was more flexible. One story that got the most attention is Allen's recollection of a December evening in 1982 when he overheard Gates and Steve Ballmer in a heated discussion about diluting Allen's share in Microsoft. Unable to stand it any longer, I burst in on them, Allen writes. This is unbelievable. It shows your true character, Allen recalls saying. At the time, Allen had been diagnosed with early-stage Hodgkin's lymphoma and was undergoing radiation. He submitted his resignation only a few months later.
Has your candor about Bill Gates in the book jeopardized your longtime friendship with him?
I don't think so, but I'm sure there are things in the book that Bill wants to discuss, and he'll have a different slant about them. And Bill and I have had many intense discussions over the years, and we haven't had a chance to talk about the book since it was published. I gave him a copy months ahead of publication, so we'd have a head start on it. So that discussion will be very, very intense, and he'll be very direct, and as will I.
Do you think you'll be able to move on from that?
Oh yeah.
It may be hard for anyone to understand that relationship, but it's clear Allen remained loyal to the company he helped start.
Mac, Windows, or Linux?
Windows, come on.
Really?
Sorry.
Star Wars, Star Trek, or Battlestar Galactica?
All.
No.
Allen grew up watching the first rocket launches, sparking a lifelong interest in space and flight. He assembled his own collection of vintage military aircraft, funded his own commercial spacecraft, and he bankrolled the Allen Telescope Array, a plan to use hundreds of antennas in California in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence.
It's a very, very long shot, and if they do hear something, they're supposed to call me.
Managing all the things that interest Allen is his company, Vulcan, with hundreds of employees, and it is an eclectic mix, promoting filmmaking, saving Seattle's Cinerama Theater, renovating a 60s landmark where he used to watch movies. And then there's his love of Jimi Hendrix.
Probably as a teenager, at some point I thought, well, I could go into programming or music. Programming won. But I never stopped playing, and so I kept slowly shedding my way through Purple Haze year after year. And so like after 25 years, I could play a half decent Purple Haze.
Alan wanted to build a tribute to Hendrix. It ended up being the Experience Music Project, designed by architect Frank Gehry.
Yeah, I kind of prodded him like guitar bodies, really swoopy and wonderful, and what an amazing job he did.
Alan wasn't too concerned that the EMP Museum struggled financially. In 2004, he added a science fiction museum.
Not everybody liked the architecture initially, but I hope it's grown on people. I don't know.
Alan says he finds himself in awe hanging out with some of the world's best musicians, like the time he conspired with Bono to get Mick Jagger to sing Satisfaction.
So I go to Bono. I said, "Hi, Bono. I don't know what to do. Mick doesn't feel like playing, but it kind of might be fun." He says, "I know what we'll do. I'll sing his song really slowly, and he'll have to sing it. I know he'll have to sing it." So we start playing Satisfaction, and Bono's singing it really slowly, and Mick starts to look nervous, like something has gone wrong in the universe. That's my song. This has to stop. So he went and grabbed the microphone, and he's singing Satisfaction. I'm playing the main riff to Satisfaction, extremely nervously behind him. And then when the song was over, I look over at Bono, and Bono goes.
Alan also found great joy in professional sports, buying the Portland Trail Blazers in the late 80s. Then, when the Seahawks threatened to leave Seattle in '97, Alan said he'd buy the football team if taxpayers helped build a stadium. The public voted yes. The stadium is only one of Alan's visible legacies. In South Lake Union, Alan envisioned a Commons Park. The voters rejected that. But over a decade, Alan turned the area into a biotech hub. A place where thousands of people now live. It's also the home to employers like Amazon.com. With the project came controversy. Many questioned why the city of Seattle agreed to help Alan build a streetcar connecting his development to downtown.
I haven't ridden the trolley yet.
You haven't ridden the trolley?
No. Do you recommend it?
Alan has pledged the majority of his wealth to philanthropy. His previous donations have benefited the University of Washington and his alma mater, Wazoo. There's the UW Paul G. Allen Center for Computer Science and Engineering. There's also a library named after his father and a visual arts center named after his mother. The Fremont neighborhood is home to the Allen Institute for Brain Science, a scientific research group to map the brain, helping researchers understand diseases like Alzheimer's, which struck his mother.
Because we all want to understand really how do our minds work? Why are we who we are?
In 2009, Alan was diagnosed once again with cancer, this time non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and Alan felt pressure to get his thoughts into a book. He says battling cancer a second time made him less patient and more patient at the same time.
There are many things that are completely out of your control, and you just have to be patient and hope things work out for the best, and be optimistic and take a positive attitude. On the other hand, you realize that if there isn't a positive outcome, your time may be limited, and so it makes you that much more focused on realizing your dreams and hopes, because all of our times on this planet are limited. So it basically, you're hit over the head with that idea when these things happen, and it gives you an impetus to accelerate the things you really care about.
When we come back, more on this intriguing relationship between Alan and Gates. Also up next, temporary art for temporary construction trailers. A bit unusual? Sound Transit explains why it's a good way to spend your tax dollars.